And even if we look beyond slavery, you have to continue to demonize those practices because the power is never going to die. So forget slave. If I just want to put all these people in the hood, I have to demonize it. If I don't want them to work, I have to demonize it. If I don't want them to ever think about, going back to the continent that they're from, I have to separate them from Africans on this continent. It's so much going on. Even on the continent, when you talk about colonialization, like Africans like to act like just because they didn't have slavery sometimes that none of this shit affects them either. But it's like even people in Nigeria are scared sometimes, or they demonize people who are in Nigerian old ancient religions. It's just like there's a connection there. And for me, I just think like it's a lot about power. There's power in it.
You bougie bitches kill me. And if you don't get it together and drop these macho attitudes, you are never going to have anybody bringing you anything, anywhere, any place, anytime, anywhere.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
All you jealous, ugly bitches, can kiss my fabulous, very perky black ass. And yes, Williams, today, you're one of those bitches.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Barely Adulting Podcast, where we discuss news, relationships, pop culture, life issues, and so much more. I'm your host, T. Marie. Now, if this is your first time listening into the podcast, welcome. I'm glad that you decided and chose to come here and listen on into the conversation. This is great. Go ahead and binge the rest of the episodes too if you haven't done so already. Now, for everyone else, if you have not done so already, go ahead and like, subscribe, download the podcast, share it with your friends and family. We just want to go ahead and get the word out there because at some point we are going to be number one. You want to be a part of that. So now that all of that is out the way, let's go ahead and get into some morning coffee. And then right after, we'll get into the grown folks table to finish the rest of our conversation from last week. So just stay tuned.
Anybody want coffee? I'm making coffee. Anybody want coffee?
So for this week's morning coffee, we'll begin with the Inauguration Day news. It was indeed a beautiful ceremony with fewer... So we'll begin this week's morning coffee segment with Inauguration Day news. It was indeed a beautiful ceremony with way fewer people in attendance because of the lingering threat of COVID-19. With that in mind, all who were in attendance were tested 48 hours prior to the big day. Although the fashion from certain figures like Miss Michelle Obama definitely turning heads, 22-year-old poet Amanda Gorman stole the show with her words. After the swearing in, President Joe Biden got right to work by signing 17 executive orders. Former Vice President Pence and his wife Karen were present and continued the tradition of passing the torch of power. Former President Trump and former First Lady, however, was not. In addition to Trump failing to attend, Nancy Pelosi announced that she will proceed with impeaching him. The impeachment article is to be delivered to the Senate on January 25th. If convicted, he could lose post-presidential perks, which are provided to presidents after they leave office, according to the Former Presidents Act of 1958. No president, including Richard Nixon, has ever lost these perks, which includes a salary equal to cabinet secretary, which is over $200,000. Some of those perks include Secret Service detail, health benefits, office space and staffing allowances, travel expenses, and also funerals. 3 grand jurors in the Breonna Taylor case filed a petition to impeach Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron. Also, Louisville Police Department fired Detective Joshua James and Detective Miles Cosgrove because of their involvement with the fatal shooting death of Breonna Taylor. Lifetime's newest biopic, based on the rap group Salt and Pepper, premiered on January 23rd. Although anticipated by many, DJ Spinderella, once a part of the group, was not at all happy about her lack of inclusion in the film. She took to Twitter stating that after being in a group for so many years, which empowered so many women, she could not have dreamed that the same group would one day disempower her. Lastly, baseball legend Hank Aaron passes away at 86. Hank, or better known as Hammer or Hammerin' Hank, Played 23 seasons of Major League Baseball from 1954 to 1976. The Home Run King held the most celebrated record in sports history for 30 years, with 755 home runs. He was one of the last Major League stars to have played in the Negro Leagues. He was elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1982. Rest in peace, you will surely be missed. This is all for your weekly dose of morning coffee. I hope you drank up. Hey y'all, welcome back again for part 2 of the spirituality, and religious conversation. We got Dani again here with us. Y'all remember her from last week. Say what's up, girl.
Hello. I am back. Ready for part 2 of this conversation. For the people who might have missed episode 1 or part 1 to this episode, I'm Dani. I practice, I read tarot cards. I also follow a little bit of the Ifa religion, West African religion, or spirituality, depending on who you talk to. And I've known Tia from way back when.
Girl, back in the day. We ain't gonna get back into that again because
that was a catch up for everybody who missed it.
Yeah. we went to high school together, y'all. So we've been knowing each other for years. So how many years is that? When was high school?
Let's not talk about that. We're still 20. What you mean?
I already told the age with the year. I already messed up. So
right.
Golly. Well, we might be, young to some people. So hey.
We only 26. All right, let's get started.
Okay. Okay, so how we left off last week, we were talking about judgment from religious people and scholars and whatnot. I don't know if we want to continue on with that or not, but it was a good conversation, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Unless you want to add anything to it.
No, I think we were just kind of answering that question of like why we think, so many people are, leaving certain popular traditional religious practices in the US. So I think we answered it.
Yeah, we kind of covered it. And just to just put this out there, myself, I know for sure I subscribe to Christianity. Or a follower of Christ, because Christianity is like a little sway nowadays, depending on who you talk to. Okay. So I follow Jesus Christ. That's what I do, what I am, whatever you want to call it, because I know that, like I said, Christianity can be seen towards some people as, let's just put it out there, the white man's religion. All right,
but it's not. It's not. It's not.
I want you to tell me why after you tell us what you subscribe to.
Well, I would say it's not because, yes, we know that the Bible and Christianity, when it came to the slave trade, was used to brainwash, manipulate, isolate, and abuse people. Right. However, the oldest Christian country in the world is Ethiopia.
Where's Ethiopia?
Ethiopia is in East Africa.
Okay.
So this is why, we know why people call it the white man's religion, but at the same time, because if Ethiopia was considered the first Christian country, then how can it be a white religion?
It gets screwed. It gets screwed in translation, especially when you have people who use biblical texts or just religious texts, right, to their own benefit. And we see this a lot, okay, where you'll get bits and pieces of the Torah, the Bible, or whatever it is, your religious text is, and you basically use that for the reason of why you do the things you do. You can say, oh, well, the Bible says not to steal, but you commit an adultery. But you never mention that portion of it, right?
Yeah. And it does look different, Yeah. It does look different when you go to different countries. So, but I feel like that conversation, I get all sides because it's nuanced. And I feel like a lot of people don't respect the nuances that come with faith.
And it's open to interpretation.
Right. And it's open to interpretation. So, yeah.
But sometimes interpretation can be a bad thing, i.e. the slave trade and everything else, right? Or even like before that, when we had people, European countries, going and taking over other places in other cities and countries and things of that nature.
And calling it manifest destiny and their God-given right. You know, that's where you get into it. Yeah.
Right. But back to you and that question of what you subscribe to and where you are right now.
Yeah, you know, I think for myself, and that's what I was mentioning a little earlier, I'm definitely in a place of transition. But I will say, you know, since I have, I'm very much a follower of IFA, IFA. And I like to put this on camera too. I'm not initiated yet, but I'm getting there. And
don't come for her. Do not come for her. In other words,
they're not gonna come for me. But you know, and I think, you know, it's crazy how my relationship with this, because you know, Ifa is a religion. You know, it's Yoruba based. You know, West African Yoruba people. You know, think Nigeria, Ghana. I think in Benin is like the main one, and it is one of the oldest monotheistic religions in the world. Like, it dates back before even Christianity, if I'm not mistaken. And the thing about it is, there's a common misconception that like West African cosmologies and spiritualities and religions are not monotheistic, meaning like one God, or that we worship statues, or that, you know, different things like that. And that's actually not the case. It's more about, you know, there are multiple orishas, you know, that, you know, how do I put this? Explain and conceptualize different aspects of life and different aspects of personality. And, you know, it's a little bit more nuanced, like we were talking about. But it's not that we just, you know, there's no guidance, there's no direction. So, you know, for anybody who's questioning, that's kind of more of my vibe right now. And okay, yeah, it's more of my vibe, you know. But like I said, I'm still a baby in this thing. And I think we have to be careful of that too, not jumping into new systems or different systems or African quote unquote systems, and not respecting tradition, not respecting the time that it takes to get into certain things, not doing our studying just because, you know, some of us, we feel like we Black, it's in our ancestry, we can just jump right in. Like, no, there's still a certain sense of, you know, balance and structure to even those religions too. So for those who are wondering, however, on the flip side, I do have a bit of a gypsy spirit. So I move around, you know, I study different things, and, you know, I take a little bit from everything. You know, there's certain things that I still follow just from being in Sunday school. The idea of like respect, an environment of respect that, you know, people who are Muslim often talk about. I take a little bit from that, you know, and I read cards. You feel me? And, you know, I have that Southern Black ancestry, so, you know, I play with a little root work. You did, you know. So, you know, and I'm being open about it because, you know, I think it's important to talk about too, because a lot of that stuff that I do is, like me and Tia were talking about, there is a level of secrecy to it. You have to respect the secrecy around it. But there are certain things that I feel comfortable and I think it's okay to talk about. And I'm a little bit of everything, you know, but I'm very much Black.
Now, that doesn't make you less Black now at all.
I know. And I'm just saying, like, so when I say that, this means that, like, I think as Black people too, we have a lot of the resources to heal ourselves.
Right.
If we just go back. And that's what I mean by, like, I'm very much Black, because I go back a lot.
And I admire that. I admire that about you, because you're open to actually go back one and you're not afraid to do it. because I do want to touch base on a little bit of what you talked about, because you said that you subscribe to a lot of different things and you dip and dabble. Let's just say that.
Yes, I do.
Try to figure it out, right? Now, let's just do a big shift, but still going based off of what you said a little bit.
Go ahead. You got it.
All right, here we go. So, you know how this westernized, colonized, European type of culture that we have over here in America, the US of A, where everything that comes from the continent, because it is a continent of Africa, especially when it comes to cultures and religion and everything else, is demonized.
Yes.
And even when it comes to hoodoo, voodoo, and everything else like that, like I've heard stories of mermaids and how they're real, and sirens and things of that nature.
Especially in Haiti.
In Haiti, you feel me? And I'm just like, these stories, I can definitely believe in, feel that, because at the end of the day, a lot of people talk about how this is demonic because of this and all this other stuff. But can we also speak on how different religions have the same type of foundation in a sense? Like, it kind of resembles of everybody else, right? It's just a different way of worshiping at the end of the day. So if you do have, I'm going to just speak on, let's just say religion A. I'm not going to give it names. Religion A subscribes to one God that does all of this, right? He, she, they are there for this reason, that reason, this reason, that reason. You got a heaven, you got a hell. You got earth and all the people that's within it and all this other stuff. Versus religion B, where you have this poly type of religion where you believe in different gods that do different things, and they have it for different reasons and everything else. They also have a place where you go after you die, or you never really die. You just move on to the next, or transition on.
Yeah, reincarnation.
Reincarnation is another one, right? Which I actually read a book about that. And that was like really, it was not a historical book or anything like that, but it was one of those, I guess, I don't want to call it a children's book or anything like that, but it was a chapter book, and I was in grade school and I read it. And I've been looking for this book for years. I really have been, and have not been able to find it. And hopefully I'm able to find it at some point in time. But it literally talked about how these two, I'm going to say spirits, souls, right, met at one point in time in their life. And anytime they're reincarnated, they come back as either a man, a woman, animal.
Are you talking about Wild Seed by Octavia Butler?
I don't think it was called Wild Seed.
Oh, okay. That sounds like Wild Seed. Go on, though.
But yeah, like they kept reincarnating into different things or people or whatever. At some point, they reincarnated until I think it was, they were in the Confederate War or something like that. One of them was white, and they did animals, and they came all the way up to like the 20th century.
Okay.
Right? And their spirits just kept aligning back. Like people believe in stuff like that. So at the end of the day, like, if I sit here and say religion B is speaking in this type of tongue, but religion A is also speaking in a certain type of tongue, or you're worshiping the devil and all this other stuff, like, why? This is a very loaded question. So at this point, it just sounds like I'm rambling, but it's a very loaded question. Why do you believe? Because I have an answer for myself, or what I believe. Why do you?
Come on, Tia, just get it out.
I'm trying. It's hard to get it out because I'm trying to figure out how to put it. That's the biggest thing.
I got you.
Right? Why do you believe that everything that came from the quote unquote motherland is demonized? Where when it comes to anything that is of Catholic culture or Christianity or things of that nature, where it's looked at as this is the right and only religion
you need to subscribe to this versus, oh, don't sit here and cut a goat and shed its blood. But you also reference to shed the blood of Christ and the sheep and everything else. Like, why do you think that is? Like I said, it's a loaded question.
Yeah. It is a loaded question. I think it's a great question. I personally think it all comes down to power, a lot of it. Because the thing about,
bro, it's the neighbors again.
No, that's confirmation that where I'm going with this might be on the right track. But I think it all has to do with power, to be honest with you. You know, a lot of, and I'm not gonna say a lot, but I'll just say the West African religion that I am very much into, and all of the kind of religious practices or spiritualities that sprinkle down from it, it talks a lot about your own power, working with the power of the earth, working with what's around you, being in touch with your ori, your own head, your own spirit. You know, it taps a lot into the fact that there's God in all of us, right? And if you're trying to control and capitalize and brutalize the people, you do not want them to feel like they have any power. So one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to demonize, like you said, or look down, or even make illegal the practices that they find power in. Because think about it, if they feel like, when you think about the Igbo landing, where all these slaves, I think it was in the Geechee, North Carolina islands, or they walked into the water and committed suicide, essentially. But they believed that, you know, this life was not for them, and only death was better than slavery. Those people had no fear of death. Enslaved folks had no fear of death. What do I do as a slave master when my slaves don't care about dying?
Ain't nothing else you can do.
That's my purpose. That's my point right there.
Except for the daylight side of them, but that's another subject. Honestly, if you watched Black Panther, that was real. So all those who cried, like, oh, what is she talking about? They use that because of that reasoning.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of the stuff that is from the motherland, I guess we'll call it, or even like stuff that we carried on over, you know,
right
to the South, you know. And even if you're from the Caribbean, you know, they have Obeah and they have different forms of voodoo and stuff like that. You have to demonize, or you have to make that stuff wrong, because a lot of that stuff people find power in, you know. And if you have any type of power, you're not going to want to be enslaved. Some people will not fear death. So what can you threaten them with? Certain people will always have peace, even in the most messed up situations. So they're always going to be centered, regardless of what you do to them. That in itself is power, you know. And even if we look beyond slavery, you have to continue to demonize those practices, because the power is never going to die. So forget slave. If I just want to put all these people in the hood, I have to demonize it. If I don't want them to work, I have to demonize it. If I don't want them to ever think about, you know, going back to the continent that they're from, I have to separate them from Africans on this continent. It's so much going on. And even on the continent, when you talk about colonialization, like, Africans like to act like just because they didn't have slavery sometimes that none of this shit affects them either. But it's like, even people in Nigeria are scared sometimes, or they demonize people who are in Nigerian old ancient religions. It's just like there's a connection there, and for me, I just think like it's a lot about power. You know, there's power in it.
Of course. Oh, child, speak about it. Speak.
You look like you have so much to say, child.
I feel like I lost it. I had it, and I was like, oh. Okay. And then it went away like a little butterfly just floating.
Yeah. And I just think, that's my answer for it. But there's so many answers to that. But I think that's what it comes down to be honest.
I found it seems like a lot of work to just keep that facade up for so long, especially if you're starting off saying, okay, I don't think anybody has ever thought this far down the line that this lie, demonization and everything else will take place and continue. And you have to upkeep. There's so much upkeep to it. Because you spoke on different points where
the upkeep of the lie.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Was that a thing? Let me go ahead and say
it just hit me.
The upkeep of the lie. Because you actually spoke about different things in our society that had to be an addition to that lie. So we already started off with the demonization of culture. It's like, okay, that ain't enough. Let's go ahead and demonize where they live. Okay, that ain't enough. Let's demonize these jobs. Whatever it is, it has to be another addition, because there's no breaking it. You can bend all you want, but there's no breaking it. So yeah,
and they see that, it's unfortunate because it's about power. There are certain root workers, like when we talk about root workers, like, I don't know, there's something about hoodoo. People be so scared of hoodoo, but a lot of it is about mixing herbs together to heal sickness, to heal your body. But it's like,
it's just like the Native Americans too. What they do. They do all the herbs and all that other stuff just for healing, but that's where medicine comes from in the first place. And at some point in time, they said that medicine and doctors and everything else was witchcraft.
Right. But it's like, even there's things that talk about what you're putting into your body. That's like a deeper level of power right there, because that affects your mind, that affects your spirit, that affects everything. And then let's just keep it real, it's some stuff that talk about how to kill somebody, how to poison them if you mix the right herbs.
But I feel like I really want to meet that person that sat down and was like, all right, let's see what this plant does. And then ring somebody up, die, well, we can't use that. So like, can't use this poisonous plant. Let's go ahead to the next person and see. Like, I really want to know how they did that. But
I would recommend reading some books and trying to get into some more education, because I think for me, this kind of goes into like my experience. There's a lot of stuff that I honestly think is like very ancestral, very much in my DNA, that just comes natural to me, but I'm trying to like study this now, that's why I said I'm in a point of transition. I do a little bit of everything, and sometimes in certain things that you do, it's okay to do a little bit of everything,
right? Of course,
it's
okay to learn. That's the thing, to be open to learning.
And that's the thing, a lot of it is just like, it has to be demonized, like I keep trying to reiterate, because it brings us back to ourselves, our best selves. It brings us back to the fact that we are souls here for a purpose. That in certain religions, it says that we actually choose the life that we live each time, to learn specific lessons and to come back. So that's why they'll say sometimes, if in the past life you were very much greedy, very rich, very much indulged, in your next life, if that's what you choose to switch the lesson, you might be humbled a lot in one life. You might not have a life. You might have to find joy and happiness with the little things, because you need to see both sides of the coin for your soul to really like elevate how it's supposed to.
I guess that came into the identity crisis too.
You see how we just looped that back around?
You see how it happened?
You see how it happened?
See?
Okay.
You got me. Because that actually comes back around to that identity crisis. Trying to figure out, trying to learn what all you can and what you can. But the first things first is you actually have to be open and accepting to learning. You can't cut it out.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I think everything ain't for everybody too.
That is true.
Because there's certain things that you have to get a reading just to see if you can practice it. Because everybody is not supposed to see the same things. Everybody's not supposed to do the same things. So this is why also, like, if you're interested in Ifa for say, or whatever, everybody don't gotta be at the top of the hierarchy. Everybody don't have to be the main person, you know, doing all this stuff. Sometimes there's just the little things that you're supposed to learn and follow, and that's where that respect aspect comes into. Like, don't think, that's what I was saying, don't think just because you want to switch over to some African religion that you can just do whatever you want. That's how you really going to be honest, mess yourself up.
Look, and what you saying that, right? Let's go ahead and stop it right there and actually talk about this little subject right here. I'm not sure if you know about this or you heard about it, because I'm pretty sure it happened several times over. It was this woman, this young lady, she wanted to practice a certain religion on her roommate. The roommate was not the color or came from that ancestral line, if you get my drift. And when she practiced it, she did it the wrong way, or she called on a particular spirit, because there are spirits out there, y'all. She called on a particular spirit, which she should not have called on, but she didn't know because she was ignorant, and she ended up dying because of all of that dabbling and whatnot. Not to scare anybody at all or anything like that, but
scare some people.
Okay, be afraid, be very afraid.
Good.
But that's the thing too, like, you can't just hop and skip and jump into certain things that you, I'm not gonna say have no business in, but I'm gonna say have no business in, or two, like have no knowledge or prior knowledge, or don't go and gain that knowledge. You can't just sit here and say, oh, I want to practice voodoo on my friend because I saw it in a movie and let's go do that. Or have those little boards, you know, the little...
Oh, the Ouija board. Let me tell you something.
I don't mess with them.
Even as a whatever spiritual person I am, I do not play with Ouija boards, because let me tell you something. And this kind of answers that question too. First of all, that young lady, this is also kind of goes into a cultural too.
Yes.
And I'm just keeping real. There's a lot of non-Black folk that want to do voodoo, want to be a part of Candomblé, Santeria.
Because they see the Hollywood version of things. That's why.
Right. And the thing about it is, you have to understand. Let's take voodoo, for example. Haitian voodoo was used to kill white people during the Haitian Revolution. So you want to dibble and dabble with spirits who literally was killing your ancestors. This is why I say everything ain't for everybody, and that level of respect needs to be there. That's how, I'm just keep it, that's how you gonna F yourself up. Fuck yourself up. Because that is very much real. And this is why it goes into the Ouija boards too. And I know Ouija boards, I think, is more like Wicca, which is like the white witches and stuff like that. But
can you explain the white witches and what is it, dark witches, black witch? I don't know the opposite.
Well, there's you know, there's this is so funny. There are like, usually if like a white person says that they are a witch, they're usually practicing Wicca, which I don't know too much about. I just know that's very European. It's very different. A lot of it can be very shadowy, because I don't like to say dark and light, but very much shadowy, a little bit darker, I guess I'll say. Sometimes a little bit more sinister. And I'm not trying to judge, you know, feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. But let me tell you, even as somebody who reads tarot cards, right? And some people will say that's more of like a Wiccan thing because a lot of white folks do it. I don't mess with Ouija boards, because anytime you're doing that, you are literally dipping and dabbling into the spirit world. And there's certain things you have to get up off of you. So there's certain doors that you can open up, just like in a church, they talk about this, you know, that you can open up. And if you don't know how to close them, you can die. You can lose your mind. You can start tweaking. You can start experiencing very sinister things, you know, and people think that is a game, even with cards. You don't just pick up a deck and all of a sudden be the greatest. Now, for me, I kind of done stuff backwards, because I have a lot of natural gifts and my mentors are trying to shape me now. But my stuff is very authentic. But even with cards, when you are reading for somebody, you're picking up on their personal energy. And depending on if you have the gift of sight and if you have a little bit of real mediumship, you are picking up on whatever spirit guides and ancestors and guardian angels that are around them. So if you piss them off you can fuck yourself up too. If you don't know how to get that person's energy up off you when you finish with the reading, you can mess yourself up. So this is why I say, like, you have to be careful, and it also goes into everything ain't for everybody, because everybody's not supposed to do everything, and there's certain things you have to do to literally cleanse your own spirit and to make sure, okay, the only people that should be in my house is me and my ancestors and my spirit guides. And a lot of these non-African descended folks don't be doing that.
Well,
go ahead.
Let me go ahead and put that in there too, because you're speaking of transferring the spirits, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just in that aspect, but it's also when you touch somebody, when you're around certain people, and you talking about, the vibe is off. That's the same.
That's the same thing.
It's the same thing. The vibe is off. It's because your spirit feels that, right? As well as, let's just put it out there, if you are intimate with somebody and they dealing with some type of demons or whatever else, whatever they got, you probably could pick up as well.
Yes.
I ain't gonna go too far into it. Right. And you just got to be careful about certain things, because we are not just this flesh that we're walking around with. We are spiritual beings, and certain things that we experience in life or experience in others, it will affect us in either a positive or a negative way. You just got to be careful who you are around. That's why they say good vibes only and all that. Your spirit can pick up on that. If it's not, if you walk into a room and it's filled with people, or if it's not, and it's like this little person telling you in the back of your head, you better get up out of there.
Get up out of there.
Your spirit telling you, come on. Your intuition that you may want to call it as well. All of that is the same thing.
And let me tell you how real it could be. You can walk into, like you said, an empty room and feel like something bad just happened.
Because I'm lingering.
There's something lingering, and that's what's important too. So a lot of what I'm into, it has the flip side of talking about how not to go and become schizophrenic. How to make sure you are mentally safe, how to make sure you are spiritually safe. That's why it's important to have mentors too who are real, to have like your spiritual family, your spiritual mother and father, because it's not a game. And and this is just in general, because all people do this, not just white folks, but sometimes they feel like because it's African, it's whatever. But it's like, no, you have to be very serious about this. Period.
Period. That's it. Like it's crazy. It's crazy, but it's real. It's very real. It can be very scary as well, especially if you don't have any type of direction or where to go.
Even if you do, it's scary. Don't let these people tell you, it wasn't scary for me at all. Like always, I feel like, especially if you have, like you talked about, you have the gift of discernment, right? And you yourself have empathetic tendency. You can pick up on people's energy. Sometimes the deeper you go, and whatever your journey is, those gifts will be heightened, like literally stronger. So it can be very scary. Even for myself, I'm constantly talking to my mentors like, okay, this was very scary for me. Like, how do I handle this? So even it's okay to be a little scared, but this is why you need people to help and guide you and direct you. And I understand that people don't have that, but try to find that too.
Yeah. And that's what any religious belief.
Any of them.
And mentors, it can come from anywhere. It could be your pastor, your preacher, or rabbi, whoever it is, right? Who can actually help guide you into wherever you need to go. But just I would say be open to understanding other people and how they think. Ask those questions without any animosity or blame, or like, well, you can't do this because of X, Y, and Z. We have no right to sit back and judge another person based off of their decisions that affect them.
Right.
unless they are affecting other people as well. That's when we get up and say, okay, now you kind of messing up here, right? But outside of that, whatever makes your boat float, that don't got nothing to do with me. That's why I always say, whatever floats your boat, hey, that's on you. Whatever decision that you make, that's on you. But you do have to be careful about certain decisions that you do make, and you have to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons as well. Because I've known people, I've spoken to people where they will go into places where they have some type of pull in whatever religious belief that, they're in, right? And they'll go in places and they'll see, they have a spirit of sight or whatever it is, right? They'll see certain spirits. It could be more demonic spirits. It could be more, or if you want to call it light, dark, or shadow, anything else like that, right? They can actually see that on a person.
They can.
It's like I said, that comes with the any faith, actually, to be honest.
And that's why we was talking about earlier, like some of this stuff, especially, I hate to just single this out, especially for Black folks, whether you Caribbean, born on the continent, born in the U.S., a lot of this stuff bleeds over into each other too.
Yeah, it does. Because I know a lot of Christians that has that spirit where you can actually see certain things, because when you're put into like those positions and you are anointed, let's use those words because that's what it is for Christianity, right? When you are anointed in a certain thing, like you're anointed as a preacher or pastor or minister or whatever, missionary, whatever it is, right? You do have certain gifts to where you see certain things, you hear certain things, you can feel certain things. Just like you were just saying, you are given gifts to where you can hear, see, everything is heightened, like you said.
Everything is heightened.
That going on. It's scary at the end of the day.
And you gotta take breaks too.
Oh,
you gotta
take like anything else. Mental breaks.
And this is for anybody who's like thinking about, I don't know, getting a reading for somebody or following somebody. I would strongly question them if you don't see them taking breaks. Because taking breaks to detox spiritually is very, 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 very important. Yes. And you also have to be okay with judgment too, because
of course, it's
you know how many people call me a witch?
Girl, I don't know, but I can believe it. Like they probably did, but you know me, I'm just like.
So it's just like whatever is you, and even if you could be the most saved, sanctified people, and somebody would tell you,
Holy Ghost still,
it's all about your own. That's why I said spirituality is more personal. It's all about your own journey, right? And whatever outlet or road or avenue you choose to find you essentially, or find your purpose essentially, is yours.
And you got to be confident in what you are subscribing to. So if you are this Muslim, be strong in that. Learn what you need to do. But also,
because I know a lot of Muslims out here. Let me stop.
Look, I'm not gonna call nobody.
I'm playing, y'all.
No, because I went to a Catholic school for 8th grade. All them niggas was heathens. Let's be real. No, I'm playing y'all, but I'm not. But I'm playing.
Yeah, we joking,
look,
but we not.
Look, hey, we all jokes here. But anyway, don't take it personal. If you do, that's your prerogative, I guess. But at the end of the day, like, you just have to be, you know how you go into the courthouse, and I'm going to use an example as a lawyer. You have to learn front, back, outside of the case, inside of the case, everything else. You need to know everything, every detail about that case. And you need to know how your opponent is coming as well. Mm-hmm. As a spiritual person and learning your spiritual journey and everything else, be open to learning the other person's case as well. Because you need to know how to fight for what you believe in too, when it comes down to it. And I want to say fight, but at the same time, if you want to have that kind of discussion or have that conversation or that dialogue with another person who does not share those same beliefs as you, you need to be able to defend whatever you're talking about, because you're going to look crazy as heck if you're going behind somebody that knows their stuff and knows yours too. Because they even said that again. Look, because they said that the devil knows the Bible too. So
That's what they say.
You know, so you have to be able and to be
Come on,
open.
Pastor.
Come on now. You have to be open to learning and understanding people, because that's one thing that's wrong with this world today. We're not listening. We're not sitting back and having conversations.
Not listening.
All we are doing is screaming, yelling, this is what I believe, and that should be it. No, you have to sit down and understand where a person is coming from, because if you don't, that's where turmoil comes in. That's where problems come in. But if you can be empathetic, if you can actually understand, okay, I understand why you did the reasons that you did. I might not agree with it. I may have chosen a different direction or whatever, but I'm not going to sit back and judge you for the decision that you made. But we can have a conversation about it. We can agree to disagree and move forward as people, as human beings, or whatever it is, even as spiritual beings. Let's say that. But shoot, that I think that was my last comment.
I just want to say I thought this was a great episode. I would love to see, you know, I know this is a lot of work for you, but I would love to see you like have similar conversations with some ministers from the Nation of Islam, you know, some deacons. You know, I would just love to see this go on. Maybe not back to back. You feel me?
Oh no, not at all. That's a lot. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
It might come into like a whole religious type of fight. I don't want that. But
yeah, I love the show, and thank you for having me. Yeah, I know you're finna start recording.
No, it's okay. Like, I'm glad that you came on, because you gave me a different perspective, and I love to learn, of course, because, you know, we both have a similar upbringing when it comes to religion, but I know we kind of went different directions based off of wherever we are in life and all that. But that doesn't change the relationship that we have together and anything like that, you know. And that's what it should be. It should. That's what it
should be, honestly.
You know? And I'm like, okay, let me learn a little bit about, you know, your background, why you do the things you do, why you choose this, and why you went that way, and everything else. And that just makes me understand you more as a person. Like I said in the beginning, I think in the first episode, right, the first part, I knew you was like this. Like, I could pick up on that as 14 years old. I'm like, I like her.
Man, that's what I'm saying. You know what? I used to think all of this, you know, happened in college when I was learning, and I was taking,
that was,
you know, Black diaspora classes, and then I'm looking like, actually, I was always like this.
You was always like that, and that was 12 years ago. We're gonna throw that.
That's crazy.
I know. I just did the math because I was like 26.
That's crazy.
Minus 10 years, that'll be 16. So if we started in 14, it was like, oh gosh, that's crazy.
But I like that we can have a space where I can learn from you, you can learn from me. Because like I said, what I do, I'm very much a baby in this game. I'm nobody's up there. And like you say, you have your own relationship with Christ. That's personal for you. That's real. And you have your own ways of thinking. And that's what, like you were saying, that's what the world needs. Like, we need to stop yelling and screaming at each other and listen to each other. And it's okay to be like, look, I ain't doing what she doing over here. And I'm judging a little bit, but it's like, I still am coming from a place of like,
love.
I love you. And I like you.
Yeah, it's still gonna be love at the end of the day, regardless of all of that, because that's what we got to do to heal this world in the first place. Because, like you were talking about your upbringing and everything else, I started off in Christian schools, right?
Me too, surprisingly.
Started off in Christian schools, stayed in the church and everything else. You see how we just drifted.
We just drifted.
You know, we just did our own thing, right? And even to this day, I still have those same friendships with people I've met when I was like 3 or 4 years old, right? We have a group chat together. We talk every day.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Ain't it beautiful? Because this is a 20+ year relationship, like, you know, and probably 23 for some people, 23, 22 years. And that was majority of my life, right? And of course, you remember Sydney. Mm-hmm. She's part of that group.
Oh, wow.
She's actually one of my oldest friends.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So
we've known each other for years. So like I said, like, we grew up where we went to this Christian school called Calvary, and that kind of shaped our identity too. Because
wait, I know Calvary
Academy. And we went there. We went there for so many years. I left in like 5th grade, and I left in like 4th, 5th grade. But when I left in 4th grade, came back 5th grade. But I went back as a rebel. Let's be real. I went to public school. My eyes were open. Like I was so naive.
It was always a little spicy now.
Yeah, that's what got me. When I went and I left Calvary in 4th grade, I was open up to a public school, because when you go, that's a whole different subject. That's a whole different topic. But when you are sheltered for so long, and then you're thrown into the wolves or the lion's den or whatever, and you're exposed to so much and so fast. So when I came back, and that was only 1 semester, 2 quarters. All right. Came back the 2nd semester back to Calvary. I was like, oh my God, you keep getting your card on red. What is going on? What's happening? Like, because I was exposed and I was, everything else. But I've been to public, private, Catholic school, you name it. I've been jumping around for a while. But like I was saying, when I was at this Christian school, I was getting all of that knowledge, all that Bible scripture and everything else fed to me. And then I would turn around and go to church, and that was fed to me too. So even if I'm leaving school and it's a Thursday night, we getting ready for church service that day. So it was like constantly a reminder. So when I was growing up, I had that foundation. So I was able to identify who I was as a young age or whatever, and, learn scripture and things of that nature and understand certain things and find it for myself. But let's not ramble a little bit more. But
because, we can go in, child.
Oh,
but
yes.
We gotta, I'll let you stop recording, but.
Okay. Well, y'all, go ahead and say your last words first.
I was just gonna say, like I said, Tia, I love your show. I love what you're doing with this podcast. I really appreciated you even asking me, somebody like me, who's new and young, and because I'm not an OG, but I love talking to you in general. And if anybody is interested in me, you can follow me on IG at Mami _Chocolata. Okay, exactly how it sounds. If you can't find it, child, oh well. But and if you're interested in any other services that I offer, you can hit me up on Facebook or Instagram at Mami Chocolata, Mami _Chocolata, and Dani Renée on Facebook if you're interested.
You see how her voice kind of changed just for the chocolate. But thanks, y'all, for tuning in again for another episode of the Barely Adulting Podcast. And thank you, Dani, for joining me this week. And the last, I really appreciated this conversation. Loved everything about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
See you later, everyone.
Be sure to download, like, and subscribe each time a new episode is dropped. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Barely Adulting Pod and share with friends and family. This is your host, T. Marie, signing off. Until next week. Thanks for tuning in.